Hey everyone, welcome to this week's DroneDJ weekly live stream. I am Seth, and with me is Ife. And this week we have Yuneec. It's back. The FAA, we have some FAA drone data, which is interesting, and it shows some discrepancies from real to what they expected. And then we also have, finally, the RC controller coming to the Mavic 3 and possibly the Air 2S. Of course, with me is it's Ife, but it's actually her evil twin, Ife.
It's a special episode this week.
Yeah.
It's the witch Ife this week.
Yeah.
We couldn't do it. We couldn't do our live show last week because Canada had the major network outage, and then my voice is gone this week. But we figured,
we're just gonna power through it. So to start off this week, Yuneec is back. They have a new drone coming out called the H850, and it has almost 65 minutes of flight time. It looks pretty much kind of like the M300 RTK.
Yeah, or M210.
Yeah, so it's. I mean, I guess at this point, you're looking at drones of this size. Physics kind of dictate what it looks like, because it also, the Air Peak has the same design, or at least similar design, and like on a lot of the companies who are building these large inspection or enterprise type drones, they kind of all have the same size.
And if you've been in the industry for a while, you know the name Yuneec. And the reason we're saying Yuneec is back is because we haven't seen them for a while. We haven't seen any news updates from Yuneec for probably a couple of years. But previously, so this is what Yuneec had before. And I remember it was the Yuneec Typhoon. They were calling it the Typhoon series. And there was Typhoon H. Especially in States, like not so much in Canada, but in States they were going strong for a little bit, and then kind of went away. So this is the first time in a couple of years I'm seeing news, especially with new product release from Yuneec in the enterprise market. So it should be interesting to see what happens.
And just some of the stats that we have off of from their releases, it has dual IMUs, compass, barometer, 2 batteries, 65 minutes of air time, so that means flight time. It'll come with a 7-inch built-in screen controller, the brightness up to 1,000 nits. So I guess probably similar to the RC Pro.
Yeah, RC actually smart controllers.
Smart controllers, I thought. Okay, yeah, and then it's running Android 10, so 15 kilometer video transmission range. So it's a pretty solid offering. For a drone, for at least especially inspections, and
it's 8 hours of battery time. That's interesting.
That's pretty good. I mean, so for the controller, yeah, that's like real good. I mean, I think the DJI RC has 8 hours, and like I've never even come. I've only charged it once still. So, like, and that's, I guess I haven't really gone flying a lot lately, but I mean, yeah, 8 hours is that's all day.
So we will attempt to contact Yuneec, see if we can get any more information, especially pricing, intended market, availability, etc. So we'll definitely stay posted with the story.
It would be good to have that thing flying around your place. It would probably be the best place to put it. I think the airport would be really pissed if I put this up in my backyard.
Well, you never know until you try.
Yeah, I'm pretty certain the airspace says no.
So next story.
Yeah, so next up, you have this one. I don't have it linked up on mine. So Jonathan Ruprecht kind of posted stuff on LinkedIn on some data from the FAA. They focus with the forecast they've predicted over the past couple of years is nowhere close to what the actual data is for per FOIA asked. So this is. Do you know what would they use this data for? Do you know?
So a lot of the comments were saying, especially the forecast data, was signaling the industry growth. And especially for investors, for people getting into the industry, back in 2016 was kind of the peak investing time for the drone industry. There were so many Silicon Valley, venture capital companies investing into new tech companies coming out from the Valley. Many of them closed their doors around, 2018, 2019. And we didn't see much investment news during the whole COVID time. So I guess a lot of the comments were saying, well, it's overstated numbers. And a lot of companies lost money or went with the hype, with the inflated hope of the market and didn't succeed.
And now the forecast says, I think 2016 was forecasted total would be 7 million drones for both recreational and non-recreational use. Actual data from 2020 shows just over 1.5 million.
Yeah. I mean, there's two sides of the story.
Yeah.
Right? First of all, I mean, I would never rely on government forecast for my business decisions. That's not their forte, right? That's not their mandate. I mean, in business world, you're always guessing. It's always a guess, and you guess based on what you know about industry, technologies, demographics, economy, etc. But you don't look at government data and say, I'm going to spend or invest $100 million in a drone company because the government data says it's going to be 7 million users. But still, I mean, we know it's always like there's always a reality check, right? Like if you look at any technology growth or disruption, there's always a peak of hope and then it dips and then starts to stabilize. So I think we're coming closer to stabilization, like more operators or users in the market are staying with the market versus at the beginning, a lot more users bought drones, put it on the shelf, tried it once and never used it.
Yeah, I know my dad bought one. Well, we actually got my dad one in, I think it was in 2015, 2016. One of those no name, cheap, like $100 drones off of Amazon for Christmas one year. And he bought it, realized that, we can't fly it in our area because of the airspace. Okay, I'll just fly it around the house. And he did it like twice, and that was it. I don't even know. We still have it somewhere. No idea where it is. So, that's not necessarily, that's pretty common, I think, with a lot of other friends got drones and they flew them around once or twice and then they're done.
I still have a lot of people calling up to say, hey, I hear, I can start a drone company. It's like the new thing. I can build $1 million company in a year. Where do I start? Those questions still come up. I mean, I still think, if you have real skills, you know how to use the equipment, there's a lot of possibilities. But definitely the recommendation is don't look at the data, the forecast data, and have unrealistic hopes.
Yeah, 100%. And then kind of the big story this week, something we've always kind of been hoping for. I talked to a DJI rep when the Mini 3 first came out and the RC was released. They kind of hinted that it's not out of the question to add support for the RC to other drones, and it's official now. The DJI RC remote controller that came up with the Mini 3 Pro is now compatible with the Mavic 3. A new update release came out this week, and it adds support. I haven't been able to try it yet with it. I'm going to probably this weekend because that will probably be my main controller for the time being, because I have a kind of bugged up RT Pro. So I'm super excited for that. I can use a built-in screen and not have to worry about it disconnecting after 5 minutes. So this is the cheapest controller as well for built-in screens, at least the DJI offers. I mean, it's an amazing. It comes in at $309. Like it's actually a really solid option.
And along that news, there's another potential compatibility update, which is
So the other thing that came out later this week. So I think when I talked with DJI, I kind of mentioned Air 2S because that made sense to me. That the RC would be used for the Mini and the Air series, and then the Pro would be with the Air and the Mavic series, just because that kind of made sense for your pros are probably more going to be using the Air and the Mavic, and then the more consumer people will be using the Mini and the Air. So you would probably, in the RC made sense to be Air, that more prosumer, the consumer side market. But no, they went with the Air with the Mavic. But Asta LV, the notorious leaker for DJI stuff, came out and said that yes, eventually they are going to add the RC with the Air 2S. hopefully in the future. Didn't really give a timeline or any more information on it. But since it works with the Mavic 3 and the RC Pro already works with the Air 2S, like there's really nothing that can stop them from doing it. I wonder if it's just a time of like, hey, like we just gotta like add the code to like make it work with Air 2S, but hopefully it'll be fine. Will the RC controller? I have a question here. Will the RC controller have a HDMI jack for video output?
No,
It does not have any video, but that's the thing about the RCs. The RC is not really meant for professional use in that way, where it has like all the extra bells and whistles of RC Pro.
But so, get this, I was at a DJI product launch event a couple of weeks ago, and the DJI rep said the RC controller has what do you call it? Google the Chromecast.
Yeah, that would make sense because it is running.
So you can actually like they demoed it on the TV here, so they could Chromecast to the TV.
I never thought about trying Chromecast out. Yeah, that would make sense for that.
But you have to be on the same. You have to be on the same Wi-Fi network.
Yeah, and I mean, it wouldn't be as reliable as the HDMI out, but
it's an option.
Chromecast is pretty good. I mean, I've been using it a lot in college, and I've never really had any major issues with it, unless you get too far away. So that would work just fine, for if you really need to share your screen. Also, a lot of issues I've seen with the RC. I don't think we've determined whether or not it's a issue with the controller, or is it an issue with the pilot. But there's a lot of people have been reporting that the RC like loses connection, has really bad connection. Of course, they're flying these drones.
It's a software issue.
It's probably, yeah. It sounds like I think that was what we kind of determined.
What happened is some of the RC, like especially the first few batch of the RC controllers, they were released with European communication standards instead of the FCC standards. So
that would make sense because it was.
Yeah, that's what was causing the range issue. So supposedly it was fixed. I have to check with my tech team because they flew the Mini 3 with RC yesterday. So I have to see because they were confirming if it was actually fixed.
Yeah. Well, some people were like, some people were getting the issue with super long range flights, which personally would not suggest flying a Mini 3 like 12 kilometers away. Like I saw some people doing down in Australia. But some people were getting it after like a kilometer or something like that, which I've flown mine out. Like, I think it was like a pretty far away, and I've had rock solid connections with it.
We had, depending on where you are, right?
Yeah, it probably depends on where.
Yeah, if you have interference in between. So we had the 600 meters and started seeing interference on the video downlink. So we didn't push it too much. Now I do have a complaint on the new controllers because yesterday I had my whole lineup of the previous generation. So I had Phantom 4, Mavic 2 Pro, Air 2, Air 2S, and Mini 2. And I had the regular N1 controller, the smart controller, and the old Phantom 4 controller too. So when we're flying that previous gen, it was great because one smart controller worked for everything, right? And I didn't have any issues. But I also had the regular controller for Mavic 3 and the RC Pro controller for Mavic 3. So when we got the Mavic 3, we got it with a regular controller and it was paired with a regular controller. So when we upgraded to the RC Pro and connected the RC Pro to Mavic 3, it only allows me to do 5 flights.
Yeah.
Because it says you were initially connected to a different controller.
So yeah, that's all.
I have to switch back to the original controller and then switch back to Mavic 3 again to do another 5 flights. So it's terrible for user experience. I really hope DJI fixes that.
That whole account thing, yeah, because I've had it too with going back and forth between the N1 and the RC Pro as well as the N1 and the RC for stuff, and it's just that needs to be fixed because that's just really annoying and doesn't really make any sense to why. Like what
I would like them to do. Yeah. I would like them to do like a password protect.
That would make sense. Like if they actually, that doesn't really, because like the way they have set up, like if it's for security reasons, like there's really no security protection other than 5 flights.
I mean, they did that for the enterprise controller for the previous Matrix 210 enterprise controller. Yeah, there's a password protect, which is great.
Like if you could lock it down to certain control, like if you could choose to be like, hey, I only want these controllers working. If you connect it to another controller, then it gives you that 5 flights. That would make sense. But since it's just one controller and you have no choice over it, other than having to like unlink it and relink it every time, that's just it's just really annoying that they have to deal with that all the time.
And while we're on that note, there's another feature I would really like to see. You know how you can limit your flight ceiling? You can put a max altitude and max distance. I would really like to put a minimum altitude after takeoff.
That would be good too. Yeah.
Like, especially we have so many students, like new students coming to the site. And
Yeah, but like a
I don't
hard
want
deck
them
on
to
it.
fly too low because then there are trays and things, at the lower altitude. I want them to be minimum 20 meters so they can practice. They're not going to crash into anything, right?
And I did a gig with the Mini, and I was just videoing around my friend's son. He was playing soccer, and it would be nice to have like a set, be like, okay, like the goals are like 10 feet tall, so don't go below 15 feet.
Yeah.
So this I never have to worry about hitting the goals. And another thing we like to talk about, I remember I was talking with someone about this because we were just having one of those sessions just complaining about things but not really coming up with any solutions. You know how that happens sometimes.
We can have a ranting session.
Yeah, it was just a ranty session we were having about DJI stuff, and we were kind of talking about the RC, and we're like, man, it would be really nice if they just like got rid of the end one for the Mavic, and just if you buy the base Mavic 3, you just get the RC controller. I don't know how many people would be happy with not having external antennas, but like it just, if we're in our head, like it made sense that the RC would just be the base controller for the Mavic. You never have to worry about using your smartphone again with the Mavic. Of course, some people want third-party apps, but they can fix that in software as well to allow that kind of stuff. But that'd be interesting to see as well.
Definitely.
Hopefully they add a bundle to the Mavic 3 with the RC.
We were talking about this a long time ago from regulation because they were looking at safety, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they were saying, I've seen pilots coming in, doing a flight, and then put a controller on the table, and they walk around, go grab a water, go somewhere, right? Like they have the drone hovering, and they put the controller down.
Yeah.
So technically speaking, if you have someone walking beside you, they can grab the controller and do things. So it would be nice to have some kind of lock, right? And I would also like, the mode switch from cine to normal to sport to be a little more, like a little less easy for people to just switch it because of the position. I've had so many times people flying and they accidentally switched it without even knowing.
See, it's better than, so I have the controller here for the 00 drone that I reviewed for the Prime Day stuff, and that is like right here on the side, right where your hand sits for and I always find it, and I switch it from I think they call it like sport and low mode, I think they call it. I switched it so many times. I mean, it's a hard switch, like it's hard to do, but like I've switched it to sport mode like a couple times. But yeah, no, it would be kind of, like, it's a good controller though. Like if you want a built-in screen, but you don't want to spend the how much is the RC Pro? Is it like 1,300 or something like that? Like the same price as almost Air 2. You're muted, by the way.
Second muted. It's 1,200 Canadian. I think it's around 1,000 US.
Yeah, compared to this $309 for the RC. Like, I mean, it's a solid option. Yeah, it's like almost. I mean, it's a good like, I want a built-in screen. I don't want to worry about my phone, but I don't necessarily need all the bells and whistles of RC Pro type
yeah
deal.
955
959. Yeah, so
959, yeah.
Yeah, I'm super excited for this. Hopefully it does come to the Air 2S. Obviously I think it wouldn't come to the Air 2. I mean, the Air 2 has been pretty much replaced by the Mini 3 Pro anyways. I would say, unless you want I haven't flown an Air 2, but I'm assuming it's probably pretty close to an Air 2S. Like if you want
very similar. It's mostly camera updates.
The biggest two things that I've noticed between the Air 2S and the Mini 3 is that the Air 2S is just much faster. Maneuverability is a little bit more cleaner. And the visibility is much easier because it has the rear lights and the front lights, and the Mini 3 only has the front lights. So if you really want to have like a similar spec'd out drone, while it is older, but it has those extra features that you're looking for, especially visibility is probably the most important thing for me, then probably the Air 2 is worth it, but it probably won't come with the RC, so just get the Air 2S.
I mean, in terms of product lineup, right? You always have Mini, and then you have, Air 2S, and then you have Mavic, which is now is the Mavic 3.
Yeah.
So, I mean, without making the controller compatible with Air 2S, you won't have built-in screen controller that works for the Air 2S. That's the problem, because smart controller, DJI Smart Controller, look, I just checked it on DJI website, and it says it's no longer in production.
Yeah. So yes, that was a part of the leak that also view that the smart controller was no longer in production. So their RC would probably come to the Air. The RC Pro,
you can't have anything working for Air 2S.
Yeah, well, the RC Pro does work on the Air 2S.
Oh, the RC Pro, right?
Yeah, it's the RC Pro. So you don't.
But
you have to pay for the RC Pro.
More expensive than the Air 2S.
I know. Yeah, so you're pretty much buying 2 Air 2Ss, and then so it would be nice so that they would just like make their controllers compatible with all their drones, which I think they can, because I think they all have O3. I think, Akisting 3. So just so you don't have to worry about, okay, you choose the controller that's right for you, and then you choose the drone that's right for you. So if someone really wants an RC Pro with a Mini 3, more power to them. It's their money. Let them spend their money the way they want to. But or if someone really wants, an RC with a Air, or RC with a Mavic, like, they have that option to do it now. Hopefully at least for the Air 2 in the future, but Air 2S in the future. I mean, so that would be nice, just to have the freedom of choice, I guess, with your controller and your drone.
We do have another question there for FPV. I believe we covered a potential FPV mini leak.
Yeah, Advanta. I think Advanta, whatever it's called.
Yeah.
There's been really no information since the original leaks. I mean, there's the kind of ish leaked, not really the leak, but like what was it, Ostel LV, or was it Deal Drone? I think it was Deal Drones. Like kind of leaked up like a modified version of the FPV goggles. To say like, it's like he kind of like squished it down, but hey, this is what the Avanta's goggles will look like. Yeah, we don't really know much about it. I think it's supposed to. I have to go back and look at what the timeline was. I think it was this month that it's supposed to come out. And
the typical timeline is you've got, sort of beginning of the year, and then you got summer release and a fall new product release. Those tend to be the 3 times for DJI, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I guess we'll see. Okay, so I believe, Kurt, the last 2 stories are related to public safety.
Yes. So last 2 things, we have some kind of a drone for good, but also drone not for good. This one's the drone not for good. Is that they had more pilots kind of get caught taking stuff into U.S. and Canadian prisons, which
I don't understand. I mean, if they drop it in a yard like this, wouldn't the guards know and just come and get it? Like,
also, like, what prisons are they doing and getting away with it? Like, are they not getting away with it every time, or they are like? Because they're
not.
Yeah, obviously they're not for this one, but like, are there also a subset of people who are getting away with it, and somehow those prisons don't have?
How would you know if they got away with it?
Yeah, also, how would you know if you did? Like, I don't like it doesn't make sense. I mean, I guess people are really drastic, and I guess for criminal organizations trying to get stuff to the people in the prison is probably very important to them. I guess maybe why like it's so hard, it's so easy to find that, because I don't think unless prisons use drones, so they don't know to determine if it's a prison drone or a outside drone, but it's probably pretty easy to figure out, oh hey, that's not supposed to be there.
I know. So if anyone got any ideas, information, please share with us, because we can't figure it out. What's the point of it?
Yeah, I mean, the point is to get stuff into the prison, but like,
it's one of those things. I mean, it gets picked up by the guard anyway.
Yeah, well, if they're like, it's just so much about this that, like, I guess we'll never understand criminal activity because we're not criminals. So it's a whole other world to us.
But if someone is from our audience, please, anything you can share.
if everyone knows better than us, please let us know. And our kind of drone for good kind of story is this week a police officer, it's her first time out, I believe it was, or she joined her drone, Officer King from the Whitner Police Department, I think, in California, was able to find a suspect in the backyard of someone, and then was able to track the suspect as he kind of fled, and direct pilots to, or direct other officers to get him. It looks like she's using a Mavic 2 Enterprise, so it's real small, compact, versus like the M30. So it's super cool to see drones be used more and more in like the real world for for safety, and for other less than more non-recreational, as the data we talked about with the FAA, but more for more enterprise rather than net recreational. So
definitely. I think we had the last question on Air 3. When we
nothing.
speculated new
Yeah.
drone this year, I don't think it was on the horizon even.
No, it wasn't on the horizon that we saw. But it makes sense. But probably maybe beginning of next year. Because we didn't it would the Air 2S came out last year, right? Beginning of 2021.
Wow, I can't remember actually.
Yeah, I can't remember off the top of my head. It's not like a old drone, but it's not a new drone. But like an Air 3 would make sense to come up soon, maybe with like upgraded camera, but like a similar a body spec probably. I don't know, like, and maybe the some of the aerodynamic changes that we saw with the Mavic 3, because the Mavic 3 had those changes with like tilted rotors and a couple of things, and then they brought that to the Mini. So it makes sense for them to bring that to the Air as well. The increased probably flight time, of course, upgraded camera, maybe vertical video.
Well, there is a price gap right now between Mini 3 and Mavic 3, right? There's a pretty big price gap.
Obviously, the price would go up. I mean, we saw the price go up on the Mini, the price went up on the Mavic, so the price is going to go up on it as well, to kind of fit in that area. And I mean, it would be nice to see like more onboard storage too. Like, it would be just, I would like to see just drones with onboard storage. Like, I don't want to pay the Cine has the 1 terabyte, but like 500 gigabytes, 256 gigabytes, like somewhere where you don't, if you forget a micro SD card, which I have done more times than I wish to admit, or I have it set up on my Autel drone, and Autels and DJI drones don't play well. So if I don't, I have to like format the SD card every time if I want to switch it between the two. And if I don't have a reader, because I've also forgotten that more times than I wish to admit, a micro SD.
And you're a photographer.
And I am a photographer. This trip to DC I took this last weekend, I didn't just forget the SD card or micro SD card reader, or SD card reader for my camera when I went to the site. I forgot the batteries. I don't know how you forget the batteries, but I forgot the batteries. So I shot a lot of film this week. So yeah, but it'd be nice to see like that, just to get away from having to put a micro SD card, in a drone. I mean, something that's like, I would like the micro SD card to be optional. Yeah.
I think that's all the news we got this week.
Yeah, that's all we got this week. Thank you everyone for coming out to the live show. And if you're listening to the podcast, thank you for listening to the podcast as well. If you didn't know we had a podcast, this is also in the podcast form. So yeah, thank you for coming out. Ife, hope you feel better. And get your voice back. And we'll see you guys all next week.
Sounds good. Thanks for joining us.
See ya.